Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Western Alliance Era 2 Premium Medium tank, the M48 GAU-8 Avenger Black Edition. Now, if you do like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the Avenger. I'm just going to stick with calling it the Avenger. It's got a Gatling gun, it's got a new mechanic, which is the cooldown mechanic. And if you saw the stats for this thing and said 53,000 DPM, you'll never hit that, ever. It's almost like a fake stat, in a way, because you'll never hit it in the universe. This tank is really hot and cold. Sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm really quite good with this, and sometimes it's absolutely dreadful. And you never have any sort of consistency in games as to what you can do, and that's because you've got poor penetration, which means this Gatling gun only works half the time, and you've got to have yourself in the right situation, which can be a bit of a troubling thing to do at times, because you don't really have the mobility to get around people to be able to delete them. The problem is, obviously, that it still does have the toxic trait that it can, if it does get around the rear of someone or around some of the sides of some people, that they do get deleted in an instant. Now, is this something that's new about Cold War? Not particularly, because other autocannons exist, like the Weasel that came out recently, but also older autocannons, like the MX-30B2, for example, or the MX-30s in general. They also have an autocannon, which can do very similar things, because if you look at this, it's got the 0.08 second intraclip reload, which is way slower than the autocannon on the Gatling gun, because that's 0.01, but it does 25 damage per shot, whereas this does 15 damage, and it's only got 5 less pen. That's always been able to do exactly the same thing in the same situations as these tanks. So it's nothing new for Cold War that sort of potential exists. Like I say, the autocannons on the MX-30s has always been extremely toxic, especially to the lightly armoured vehicles. But this tank has no other main cannon other than that, and it does fire a little bit quicker, which is, like I say, it's got that toxic ability to delete someone, which is something that shouldn't really be in the game that much, because it's just not fun to play against, and you don't really have a counter because you just don't react in time. But on the whole, have I enjoyed this tank? No, I really haven't. I don't think it's that good of a tank, to be perfectly honest. You just have the satisfying ability to every now and then have a clip that works, and a tank is gone very, very quickly. So, yeah. Without further ado, anyway, let's get into the statistics of the Avenger. And as you can see, you've got a 56 km/h top speed with a 24 km/h reverse speed. Now, this speed is okay, but it's not great for what you need to be doing to get this gun to actually work. So, like, for me, I end up helping it out as much as humanly possible with the powertrain and traction system to get it at least somewhat quicker so I can try and outmaneuver people. But even then, you don't outmaneuver people in the M48 Avenger. We've got 750 horsepower engine with a 17.07 horsepower per ton ratio, which means you do hit the 56 km/h top speed, which is why if you run the other speed equipment, it's good to do that, because you can just get to that top speed anyway. 15% internal fire chance means you're on the middle of fire chances, and I haven't really been set on fire in this tank yet, so can't really say anything about that. We've got 2,700 hit points, which is a decent slab of hit points, but if you face yourself in another Avenger, basically your hit points evaporate, because they can pen you straight through the front of the turret. You've got 46 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which is pretty decently quickly, and it will get better with running clutch braking and the traction system. Ground resistances that do not hold the vehicle back. 540 meters of view range means that you will be able to spot decently in this tank at good ranges, but it doesn't really matter too much in Cold War, because generally you can see them with true vision. But yeah, if you buff that thing up as well, you can actually get some good assistance damage, because you'll spot things way further away than other people will, and thus you'll get more assistance. You've got 60 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which is way quicker than the hull rotation. So the turret speed is very, very good. And again, if you help that out, you'll get that even quicker. 1.8 accuracy during rotation with 1.01 accuracy during movement means that you don't really have to help the accuracy during movement too badly, because it doesn't actually bloom out that much, the aim circle, while you're on the move. It's when you turn the hull and the turret is where the accuracy really does bloom out. So you want to try and help that accuracy during rotation as much as possible. You've got a 2-second aim time, which gets even lower, obviously, as you help it out, and it does aim in pretty quickly, meaning you're nearly always aimed in. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression, which means you're extremely flexible on a ridgeline, which is nice. A 10-second reload. Now, you might be going, 10-second reload? It has one clip, which is where it gets the 52k DPM from, because it actually doesn't have any extra clips. It doesn't technically reload, which is why the DPM is so high. It's got a 10-second reload because you've got 2 round types. You've got APCR and HE. So if you were to switch to the HE, if you took HE in your tank, it'll take 10 seconds to reload that. That's what the 10 seconds is. You got 0.3 accuracy, which is fairly accurate, and again, it will get even more accurate. The only thing that holds this vehicle back in terms of its accuracy is the 1,013 meters a second shell velocity, which means it's not that good at shooting at tanks that are on the move at range, especially with the... It's almost like server latency. Sometimes you pull the trigger, you fire, and it feels like you should be firing way ahead of someone, but you're not. But yeah, the 1,030 meters a second does hold it back a little bit in terms of firing at distance, but a lot of the time in this vehicle, you will be in people's faces, so that doesn't really matter that much at all. You got 92 penetration, which is poor, generally, for the era, and it's, like I say, only 5mm pen better than the AMX-30's autocannons, and you will struggle to pen most vehicles with this. You have to get to the rears, you have to try and aim low under spaced armor, try and hit drive wheels, and even then, a lot of the time when you're hitting drive wheels, you don't really pen them anyway. It's just one of those things of catching people out. When you catch someone out, you will delete them, which is, like I say, is fairly toxic, but at the same time, there's so many tanks you just sit there going, I'm not doing anything to them. You do have an overpen mechanic, or a bleed-through damage mechanic. I don't know what the name of it is. They haven't named it. But you do have bleed-through damage, which means that when you are shooting at things at times, you will not pen, but you'll still do 1 or 2 tick damage, right? Which can be handy for still doing damage when you're not going to pen anything, but it can actually be a little deceiving at times. You got 150% silver bonus with a 70% premium vehicle earn XP rate, which is the same as any of the other black tanks. It does make decent silver at 150%, but there are better silver earners out there as well. So as with the armor, like I say, if you are in another Avenger and you want to pen this thing, just shoot it in the turret front. It has basically no turret armor, and that means that it is extremely easy to pen on this turret front, as it is basically only 44mm thick, and you will butcher yourself. Don't really shoot the hull, because it is an M48 hull, which for every tank in Era 2 will butcher you. They will go through you very easily in terms of your armor, but if you're shooting yourself in another Avenger, you need to shoot the turret, not the hull. And the modules, if we have a look here, is the engine right there. So if you shoot the back end here, especially if you're firing any of the autocannons like the MX-30s or this, or Marders or Bagel Panzers, you'll break the engine if you shoot that back end. And the ammo rack is there. It's an ammo belt, as you can see. It looks really funky. But if you want to damage the ammo rack of this thing, you will shoot it right there in the center. But naturally, because it doesn't actually have a reload, I'm not sure if the damaging the ammo rack affects the cooldown. I don't think it does. But all you have a chance of doing is blowing the head off, pretty much. But yeah, this tank, the other thing that doesn't state in the statistics here for this vehicle is that the cooldown, once you hit the cooldown, is an 18-second cooldown, and you cannot make that better. So it will, as soon as you hit the top of the bar, it will always take 18 seconds for this vehicle to be able to fire again. And even then, you have to wait for it to cool down even more after the full cooldown is done, which usually takes 5 to 10 seconds. So you're effectively out of the game for nearly, between 25 and 30 seconds once you've fired the clip. Or should I say, once you've hit the overheat. So you've got to be very, very careful not to hit the overheat, otherwise it just basically kills you. That's what it does, it kills you, because it takes you out of the game for far too long, and other things will just murder you. Especially if you don't kill the thing that you were shooting at. So what do I run in terms of recruit and equipment? Well, I run food, but this is a complete personal preference. You could run food, or you could run smoke, or fuel. Fuel to go faster, because the speed will be nice to try and out-traverse people and get round to where you can actually use this gun. Smoke, because it could be quite handy, especially if you hit cooldown and you need to be able to get away and get safe to be able to wait for the gun to be able to be using it. Or food, to be able to try and make some of the stuff like the accuracy better and the all-round tank better. Now, I run that out of personal preference to try and help the accuracy during rotation a little bit more. But you could quite easily run smoke or fuel. That is a personal preference for you. And then in terms of the equipment, I run the gun stabilizer to help the accuracy during rotation and movement. It helps the movement down even lower, which means that it'll be fantastic during movement on the accuracy. But the rotation is the big one that we're trying to help with this gun stabilizer, so that we're basically never having to really truly aim in. The traction system and the powertrain for all that speed, baby, so that we can try and at least get around the vehicle so that we can use this gun, because this gun goes from being absolutely deadly to really pathetic at times, where you sit there going, I'm not even scratching these vehicles. So you really want to be able to use the mobility to get around them. And then on the Vickers Mark III, we go over to wherever I've put it, and my brain cannot find my vehicle. That's awkward, isn't it? There it is. I couldn't see it for some reason, but there we go. Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Rapid Aim, Clutch Braking, Deadeye, Track Mechanic. Deadeye for increasing the chance of doing module damage by 6%. Because of the amount of bullets hitting people, it will mean that you're increasing your chance of doing module damage exponentially with Deadeye. Again, you can quite easily get rid of Deadeye and run something else. I run Track Mechanic because I don't want to get permatracked in this thing. I don't want to have this situation where you get your track blown off, you repair, and instantly your track gets blown off again, and you have to sit there for the full 10 to 15 seconds waiting for it to repair when someone then just throws an ATGM at you and all your hit points disappear. So the Track Mechanic helps get your track back on way quicker. Again, you can quite happily get rid of that if you're happy enough with your repair kit and run something like Run and Gun to make the accuracy during movement better, run Supply Conservation to get food or your smoke back quicker, to reduce the amount of damage coming in with armor angling, run Controlled Impact if you feel like you're going to go ramming light tanks and stuff like that. It's down to you and how you want to play the vehicle generally. The Clutch Braking and Rapid Aim, like I say, to make the Touch Traverse and Track Traverse better. Again, helping the mobility of the vehicle to feel like it's a bit more nimble in trying to get round people. Steady Aim and Snapshot to make the accuracy better by 10% in general, and the accuracy during rotation to be better so that we can keep the gun bloom down when we're turning the turret, which we're going to be doing quite a bit, because we're going to be trying to keep the gun on target. So, you know, making it so that the bullets don't spray absolutely everywhere. And these four perks you're pretty much going to take on nearly every tank in Cold War. So let's have a look at the statistics now of the old GAU-8 Black with the full equipment and crew loadout. As you can see, we now go at 65 kilometers an hour with a 27 kilometer an hour reverse speed. We've gone up to 787 horsepower engine, which is now a 17.92 horsepower per ton ratio, which means that we do hit that top speed and we do fly at 65 kilometers an hour, which is really helpful. Like I say, it will help you to try and get up behind people. Ground resistances have got better, but like I said, they don't really hold you back anyway. We've got 55 degree a second hull rotation speed, which is really quick. 586 meters of view range means we'll spot targets at good distances. We've got 72.98 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed, which is way, way quicker than the hull rotation speed. That turret rotation is absolutely bonkers. It's very, very quick. We've got 1.2 accuracy during rotation now, which is still not the best, but is what it is. 0.76 accuracy during movement is a lot better than it was as well, meaning it's super accurate during on the move. And 0.2 for accuracy at 100 meters means that you are very, very accurate as well. And you've got an 8.1 second reload, but like I said, that doesn't really affect it unless you're at the start of the battle or you switch to HE. Which the HE rounds do have 40mm of penetration with 30 damage, which means these things can be lethal to light tanks. Like, light tanks really do just evaporate very, very fast, but they evaporate quickly anyway, so there's no real point in carrying the HE, to be fair. But it's just meme value, I suppose, on that front. I should really load this thing with full HE and see what happens, but anyway. That's what you get with statistically with the Avenger. That's just the tank in general. Like I say, it's a very hot and cold tank. Sometimes you'll have a good game and you'll go, oh, that was satisfying because you deleted light tanks and lightly armoured vehicles very quickly. And most of the time you'll sit there, you'll be against a lot of tanks that you just cannot pen. You sit there going, what am I supposed to do? And they just eviscerate you. And you go, oh, well, that was a good fun game, wasn't it? I generally haven't had fun playing this tank. I'm not going to lie. I haven't enjoyed it whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, if you were to look at it in terms of costs in the store, if we go here, it's 7,900 gold, which is very, very good for an Era 2 medium tank. That's very good for a silver earner. But like I say, it's just going to have those hot and cold games, which can be really frustrating to play at times. But you do have the toxic ability to just delete people. But again, it's not anything really new for Era 2 or in Cold War in general, if you count the Era 3 autocannons as well. So what I'm going to do now for you all is send you into the replays where you can watch this thing in action, see how it handles, see if it's a bit of you or not, see if we're talking nonsense or not, and see if you can watch this thing in action, see how it handles. So as always, everybody, I'll see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays, in the GAU-8 Black, or the Avenger. I just stick to call it the Avenger, it's easier. And we're on this map, which is Nomini Nom. And on Nomini Nom, what I'm going to do is basically do what I would always do generally in Cold War, and that is rush down the 3 line. Because if I can get to the ridge lines about B, C, 3, 4, I can get there, go hull down, try and see the people with the true visions, and then try and them. Well, I think I got that down right. Yeah, them. Because that's what this tank does. That is one thing that is that is one of the nice things about these Gatling guns, I will say, just like the tier 10 one, is that they do sound super satisfying. They've done a very good job on how they sound. And when you get to fully unleash, it's a very satisfying sound. Forget the toxicity of the deletion, you know. But anyway, I'm going to go to about B4 because I can basically find someone I can delete them. We're firing at this AMX-30 B2 at the minute. And this is where it can be a bit deceiving with the damage. It felt like I did a lot to that guy, right? I spotted him, so I got a lot of assistance. But I felt like I did a lot of damage because there was a lot of 1s and 2s popping up. But I only did 383 and I nearly went into my overheat. Which, yeah, when you are firing at people and you're not penning them, it feels like you're doing a lot to them, but you're not. You're just not, because you're only doing 1 or 2 tick damage on the the bleed through damage, right? So it can be a bit deceiving in that regard. But we see where the M113 is. We see the MX-30. Now, the MX-30s can actually shred me through my turret with their autocannon, but I can also shred them. And we just burst it to kill that MX-30, waiting for our cooldown to hit the 3rd bar, get a few shots into this MX-30B as well, and these are the perfect tanks to be able to shoot with this gun, as we can absolutely melt them, and in the blink of an eye, we did 3.7k damage with 2.4k assist, because we also tracked the MX-30. They're the sort of tanks that are perfect against, like I say, they can counter us by penning us straight through the turret with their autocannon, and they will do damage just as quickly, but at that point, you're just killing each other in very, very quick time. It's one of those things, the MX-30B's autocannon, like I say, does 10 more damage per shot than ours, but they fire in 0.08 seconds, whereas ours fires in 0.01, so we do dish it out quicker, but they still have that same capacity to shred with it, as well as having the main cannon, which can guaranteed pen anyone anywhere, right? So we get a couple of shots there into the GAU-8 Black with the RBRT. We're up to 4k damage nearly with that 2.5k assistance. And I'm just trying to push into a place where maybe I can get some shots into the side of the Chieftain. Can't quite get it. I'm just going to keep bursting occasionally to try and get some shots into these guys as they cross. One thing that's also good about these tanks is, for the opposition as well, is you can clearly tell when these tanks have gone into overheat. Because the gun glows orange, like red hot, and you see it smoking, and that's the clear indication that these guys are on a overheat, and you've got 18 seconds to take advantage of that. Because it is just a standard M48 with an even weaker turret, which means that you are very easy to pen and very easy to take out. So you can see we're going after this Conqueror, and I'm extremely struggling to get shots into him and pen him. I'm struggling to do anything at all to him. We're basically doing 1 and 2 damage, but we did track him, which means that my team gets to shut him down. I get all the assistance for that, but that was the type of tank where I couldn't do anything to him unless I get round his rear, and I tracked him to get round him, but because the mobility of this vehicle isn't that great, you know, it's 65 kilometers an hour is good, but especially in a situation like we were there, it's just not that good. It's just not good enough to be able to get around the tank, and if we hadn't tracked him, we'd have quite easily turned anyway, and we wouldn't have got anywhere near a position to actually be able to do damage. But we did do, what, nearly 10k combined there, which, for damage-wise, 4.4k is pretty poor for an Era 2 tank. Generally, you want to be hitting around 6k on average. 4.4k is pretty poor, and that's because we managed to delete the 2 tanks that we faced, which was the MX-30s. They were gone very, very fast. But then we faced other tanks that we couldn't do anything about. Like, we can pen a T-72AV in the rear. We can, if we avoid the log of doom. Because that log of doom does block shots. But we can also track and pen it. And they've got weird armour around the drive wheels, which means that we can pen them with 92 pen. But generally, like, the T-72s are also an absolute pain for this vehicle. So we're on the second replay, and this second replay we are on this map, which is Hellfire Pass. And on Hellfire Pass, what I want to do is try and go to around F6, because if I get up to F6, I can shoot the people that might be sitting at E7, and I can also shoot people that go and sit at FG0 as well, because people do like to go sit there in Cold War. And that means I can use this rock on my left to keep cover, and I can also use the ridge lines to try and cover as much of my hull as possible, because it isn't, like I say, it's an M48 hull in Era 2, it's very easy to pen and very easy to wreck. So we end up seeing the opposition GAU, and at this point I didn't realise how thin the armour was on the turret, so I could have just literally blitzed that guy through the turret front, but I didn't really want to take the shot. We see the other guys, which is the T10 and the other GAU as well. And we're just looking for shots at this T80. Again, you can see occasionally penning, occasionally not penning, and we hit the overheat. So 529 damage. So we're now into an 18-second cooldown where we're just stuck not being able to do anything at all. We're extremely vulnerable. And that animation, to be fair, for the Gatling gun is really cool for the overheat mechanic. It just looks cool. But yeah, now we're in cooling down mode. We have to wait for this to be able to get to full capacity, and it takes about 10 seconds. Now sure, we can do what we just did to that BMP, where we can fire anyway and then wait for the cooldown, but you want to be on fully cooled down to make sure that you don't have accidental times where you go into the overheat, because it is very easy to accidentally overheat. You might think, oh, I need to stop pulling the trigger now so I don't overheat and have to wait 18 seconds, and then it does it anyway, and that's because, like I say, it can be pain. So you can see we shot the upper plate of the T80 there. We did absolutely no damage to the bleed through, because I'm pretty sure the bleed through, from the feeling of playing it, basically doesn't do much in terms of going or doing any damage to ERA or spaced armor. It seems to be dependent on what the plate is that you're hitting as to whether you actually do any extra damage if you don't pen. But we see the 4-2-1-1. Now the 4-2-1-1, I can pen in the cupola. The T80 above has killed the tank that went after him, but he's still alive, which means he's exceptionally awkward for us to go after. Going for that drive wheel, because I know I can pen and track the drive wheel of a T80 with 92 pen, and there we go. And that's because I've got that experience of trying to pen tanks like the T80 with the MX-30B2's autocannon. We see the FV-4211's cupola, which is very easy for us to pen as well with 92 pen, and we basically take all of his hit points with the shots into the cupola. Again, I've got the experience of using these autocannons with the AMX-30s, and the AMX-30's autocannon is extremely deadly. That's why I love the AMX-30s, because they are so deadly when you catch people out, because you can use the main cannon with the 480 odd pen with the APCR on the premium rounds, because the heat rounds can be a bit troll, and then you can just melt people with the machine gun anyway. And with 87 pen, there is a lot of plates you can penetrate, and if you're used to using the MX-30B cannon, you are going to be used to using this cannon as well. So we see the GAU-8 in the distance. We launch a lot of rounds downrange. We did about, what, 600, 700, 800 damage there, and he also penned us quite a few times, and we're stuck in the overheat. I did try to not overheat there, but it just didn't work. And we ended up going into the overheat and have to wait these 18 seconds. They do only have one tank left, and it is that Avenger that we're going to try and see if we can get any extra shots into. I can just see the turret roof, so we're going to go for the cupola, but our friendly T80 takes it out. And finished the game with a decent total there for the Avenger. We finished with the epic victory. Top of the team with 2 kills, 5.5k damage, the 1376 base XP. With a decent amount of silver as well, 161,000 for the second class. And yeah, that game, again, epitomised the GAU-8, where when we came against something that we could pen, we absolutely wrecked it super quickly. But as soon as we had tanks like that T80 above us that was really awkward for us to do anything about, we just struggled, and we couldn't actually do anything about him, because even trying and get some of the bleed through damage, we weren't getting it because we were hitting plates that we just couldn't do the bleed through damage to anyway. So we're on to the third replay. In the third replay, we're here on Thiepval Ridge. And on Thiepval Ridge, what I want to do is go to the position over on the hill over here at DE89. Because from there, I can shoot the people that might camp at G5. But also from that, I can also shoot the people that try and go up to where we spawned. Because people... Well, it's Duckler Pass. Cold War. Duckler Pass Cold War is just like Thiepval. And Thiepval is just like Duckler Pass, in that the teams go around like a donut. And that's because their teams spawn at J45, they'll all charge up the 1-2 line, and our team, spawning at B23, tend to all charge down the AB line. And it always happens every time, just like Duckler Pass, where you go around like a donut, and it ends up being that you get free shots of people as they climb the hill at D23 from here, which can be pretty good. They also get shots at you, though, if you're spotted, as you've just seen us take a hit. So we're up to 1,549 damage, because we've got a fair few hits early on. We tried to go through the side of the Batash's turret, but we didn't actually go through. And we're just waiting to actually get the full cooldown so we can try and, again, not end up in that 18 seconds. Because if you preempt it or you do it too much, you just end up being so useless for so long. And especially with Cold War and especially with Era 2, the games can go super, super quickly. And if you end up in an 18-second cooldown and then the cooldown, you know, your overheat finishes and you go into full proper cooldown, you can end up pulling the trigger too soon and then going back into that 18-second cooldown after doing about, you know, probably 100 damages worth of burst. And then you just end up stuck out the game for even longer than is perfectly necessary. And you end up, yeah, getting completely useless for far too long. So we're still going after this 6B GAL. It's not a Batash, it's a GAL. We're going after the GAL and... or the GAL, and we're going to go try and get some shots into his side, if we can, maybe into his drive wheel, because we might get lucky enough to actually be able to penetrate the drive wheel of this guy. So we're just trying to use it. As you can see, it can be a bit of pain, because even though we're getting shot, there we go, we've got it, but we're not penning it. We actually did about 200-300 damage there to the side of that 6B GAL, which is now very awkward, because we're stuck in a cooldown, and he can quite easily come and farm us. He's been very hesitant because most of my team is directly behind me and I'm using the rocket directly in front of me to keep myself covered so that I don't lose any hit points to him. We're at the cooldown now, but tanks from their team are starting to come around and loop around the 7, 8, 9 line, so I'm trying to maneuver myself away from that. We take a hit from the 6B and then we see the Wolverine. I'm thinking, oh, Wolverine, I can machine gun that. So waiting for him to turn a bit, or in fact we didn't even need to do that. We end up finishing him off for 300 damage. And we are going to maneuver ourselves into a position now to try and get some shots at the guys in the cap, like the medium tank and that TATB. In fact, it's an M60. M60s are a dream for this thing, like the base M60, because as soon as they turn their side, they are very easy to penetrate. We can't really pen them any other way, though. So we actually managed to get a few shots there into his side because he gave us his little engine block. Because you see the little engine block on the back of the Avenger, that engine block is pretty easy to actually pen on all the other M60s if you get shots at their side. So he gets tracked, again, going for that shot into the rear, and, well, he got absolutely machine gunned by me and another Avenger there. So they've got 6 tanks left on the enemy team. There's the heavy tank, the TAT, that just got killed by the Weasel. There's 3 light tanks left. Now, I got rocketed, right? I got an ATGM straight into the side. We got very lucky not to die. And I know where it came from. So we're going to go charging after it, because this thing is filthily deadly to light tanks. We get spotted and detected. It's like, what is it? Oh, it's a Marder 1A1. He's just sat there trying to machine gun us, which was a silly idea. And, well, yeah, that's what happens to tanks that you can pen. They are gone in the blink of an eye. That is the difference between this and the MX-30's autocannon, however, is that the MX-30 will take your hit points very, 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 very quickly with that autocannon. But it doesn't take it quite as quickly, which is where this thing is a little bit more toxic, because your time to react, your TTR, is horrifically short, just like on the Tier 10 light tank. So from the moment this thing starts firing at you, you go, oh no, I'm being fired, I'm dead. And it's not the most fun to play against, because before you've realised that you are being machine gunned, it's game over, and that's it. We finished with the third game with the 4 kills, 7,097 damage with 286 assistance. Again, decent amount of silver. The first class for that 1575 base XP. Pretty nice game there for the GAU-8 Black. So now we're going on to the 4th and final replay of this video, and we are on this map, which is Swamp. And on Swamp, what I'm thinking of doing, which is probably the wrong move, realistically, in Cold War, is going to the position that I generally like to take in World War II, which is going to the position that's just been pinged at D8, because from there I can shoot the people that cross the AB line in the side, which is perfectly what this tank wants to do, right? So that we can get some shots at places where we can actually pen, because 92 pen is poor in Cold War, as your main cannon, that is. Because I'd say that 92 pen is enough to go through a lot of plates, right? But if you're having to rely on it as your main damage dealer, that's where it really starts to become like, a bit poor. And that's why I say that this tank is very hot and cold. Because you will have those games where there's lots of squishy MX-30s, lots of light tanks, lots of Weasels, which Weasels absolutely shred you, but if they sit in front of you like that, you absolutely shred them too. As we've just done 1,688 damage in 2 seconds, if that. But yeah, you'll have games where you've got the squishy tanks like the Weasels, the MX-30s, the other light tanks, and then you've got games where you basically don't do anything at all. Now, the Weasels are an absolute pain to shoot at when they're full chat on the move with this thing, because there's just like a delay. It's almost like a delay. That I was aiming way ahead of that guy, but all my shells were flying far behind him. But, you know, if light tanks do what that mod has just done... Yep, that modified his ACGM. It hit me. It took a lot of my hit points, but... I pretty much took all of his hit points, and we're up to 4,000 damage. Just now, just like that. And this is one of those games where the lightly armoured vehicles, the tanks that don't have that much armour, are just sitting in front of us and going, shoot me! Shoot me! You know, and we're going, well, I'll oblige to that. So the T-10 crosses in front of us, not really going to pen a T-10 too easily, but an M60, however, well, you know what I said about the M60? You get that side and rear, it's got a weak rear end. And good night. And we managed to shut him down. We can see what I was feathering there to try and avoid going into that overheat. You don't want to just hold the trigger down and go full burst. You want to feather the shots as much as you can so that you can not overheat. But now we're under immense pressure. We get lucky that we bounce the T10, and then the Weasel 1 MK ends up poking out, giving us a free shot, so we get rid of that little pest. I'm just looking for shots at this Leopard 2 AV now, who is incredibly difficult for us to actually pen with 92 penetration. The T80B drives out. We get quite a few shots into that guy, but for pretty much most of the overheat there, we only did, what, 200 damage, if that. So we wasted most of our potential to try and get the shots in. And I'm stuck, because I don't want to pull back too far, because there might be tanks behind me that can quite easily kill me from the little ridgeline at D56. But we could also get killed by the guys in front. Now, that bandit gets tracked. So we take advantage of the fact that we tracked the bandit and we pummel him with so many rounds. We're up to 7.5k damage, but the smoke that got popped by the Leopard 2 AV ends up meaning that I can't actually see the bandit and get shots into him. We do get a load more shots into the Warden, looking for shots maybe at the Bagel Panzer or the bandit, but we can't quite get those shots in because they pull back out the way. The Leopard 2 AV pulls out his sideways, and we get finished off by the bandit. And sadly, that was the end of our game. But we do finish with the epic victory, 4 kills, 8,851 damage, 645 assistance, the first class, the high caliber, with that 1,696 basic XP. A really nice game there for the GAU-8 Avenger, which, like I say, is very, very hot and cold. Sometimes you have those games like you've just seen where everything's paper thin and you just absolutely shred everything, but then 3/4 of the time you have games where you just struggle to pen anything, you struggle to get into a good position to actually do any damage, and yeah, it's just a pain in the ass. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!